Welcome to One Man's Tracks, the second-hand music channel. I'm amped up because I've had the pleasure of digging into a band with a distinct stylistic pursuit whose catalog just doesn't seem to miss. The funky, eclectic rock of Primus has me buzzing with excitement to go see them live, and I wanted to come and talk a bit about the band and rank their studio records. The origins of Primus go all the way back to 1984 when Primate was formed by Les Claypool and guitarist Todd Huth, joined by Jay Lane on drums. They'd tour for a number of years before Todd and Jay's departure in '88. They'd be replaced by Larry Lalonde and Tim Alexander, and we'd see Primus's very first release with a self-released live record later the following year called Suck on This. Todd and Jay have continued to play intermittently with Les's other escapades, and all together once more for their one-off Sausage album in '94, but besides Jay playing on Green Naugahyde and I guess Brian Mantio playing on the Brown and Antipop, and I guess some fungi ensemble folks in the Wonka album. When it comes to classic recording Primus, we're pretty much just talking Lar, Herb, and Les here. There are currently 9 Primus albums, masters of off-kilter, funk-thrastic tomfoolery, these albums serving as mirrors to glimpse into our extremely compromised human experiences, and I can't get enough. I'm ranking them, but know that there's no such thing as a bad Primus album. They're either super fun, supremely funktastic, or just totally primo. And they all kind of suck, so with that in mind, let the listing begin. Falling into the super fun Primus album category, my least favorite Primus project is their 1995 release Tales from the Punch Bowl. Their fourth full-length record features off-the-wall experimental rock mashups, these unnatural, uncomfortable encounters. It's a real shotgun blast of maniacal rock. As much as I'm all in on mixing up a melting pot of musical ideas, even after leaving the blender on full blast here, this nut butter's just a little too crunchy for me still. I'm far more fond of the moments where they lock into a groove, like with the hypnotic throbbing rhythms of southern pachyderm or the rippin' road trippin' vibes of Over the Electric Grapevine. Overall, I'm not that crazy about what I feel is a muddier vocal mix across this project. There is this new intensity to their reckless abandon here, but I feel like it's just a bit too loose and unfocused and aggressive to be properly wrangled into a studio setting, and I feel like a ton of these tracks like Miss Blaylene, Hellbound, Dell's Tree Farm, and On the Tweak Again would connect so much better in a live setting. On to number 8, also super fun. It's the band's 8th LP released in 2014. The sinister reimagining of a Roald Dahl classic, Primus and the Chocolate Factory with the Fungi Ensemble. While I love this album's dramatic irony and in the right setting, it can be really warranted. However, its freaky adventure can even challenge my capacity for creepy campiness at times. Maybe it's my previous familiarity with the wilder Wonka that has this hair-raising juxtaposition, swinging a bit too maniacally for my taste, but occasionally it just feels like the heavy hands that really steer the syrupy Wonkamobile aren't quite precise enough to bring it smoothly into shore, and it leaves a couple of the wise Oompas knocked off before they can tell their little riddles. I have a tough time picking a favorite here. It kind of varies based on my mood. Sometimes I'm dancing around all giddy because I got a golden ticket, or sometimes I want it now, but mostly that's because I know it'll get those little Loompa Loompas fired up to sing their fun little ditty again, and maybe that's my favorite, a compilation of all the Oompa tracks. I swear I didn't plan it like this, but in 7th and the last of the super fun Primus projects is the band's 9th album, released in 2017, called The Desaturating Seven. Another musical adaptation of a colorful children's book, this time narrated by none other than math rock legend Justin Chancellor. This moody tale of rainbow goblins is brought to life by this group's playful, proggy, emotive rock bends and slaps. It has some incredible moments like the Trek's perilous journey and its funk nasty breakdowns. There's the catchy marching choruses of the Seven, as well as the way they've captured the sense of corrupted confidence in the scheme. At only 35 minutes, it's the shortest by a long shot, but also probably the most cohesive in the Primus discography. That said, it doesn't leave a whole lot of space to sink into or play around in besides the introspective jam on the scheme that's kind of Rush-like, or maybe King Crimson-y. I'm certainly a bit more invested here than I am with Wonka. Maybe it's due to the fact that they didn't have previous songs to interpolate here. It's a tight tale of the unfortunate spoils of unquenchable greed that's, like I said, super fun, so don't miss out. Here's where we take the step up to supremely funktastic Primus with my 6th favorite, their morbid, chunky 1993 third LP, Pork Soda. You can tell the band's already fairly disillusioned by this point, and you can tell that they're creeping slowly towards those punch bowl levels of unhinged right out the gates here. From the thrash and funktastic backwoods storytelling of My Name is Mud, through the bangin' circus carousel of Welcome to This World, then past the catchy, eerie metronomic thumping of Bob with DMV snidely ripping through that unforgiving smog with its tremendous heavy-duty funk rock vibes. It's a fantastic front four, but it can be a little exhausting. It leads you into old Diamondback Sturgeon. It's a brilliant tale of sometimes you ride the wave and sometimes the wave rides you. It's super cruisy and a breath of fresh air after that onslaught, but it is still a bit of a jarring vibe shift nonetheless. I really like when we reach Nature Boy's boppin' fever pitch, but the middle of this record just doesn't click together quite as nicely. I hate to complain about sequencing, but the flow is just a tad disjointed, as great as the individual songs here are. Maybe some are a little over or underdeveloped. It feels like there's some awkward lengths when it comes to some of these tracks, but either way, I'm not going to move on to the next album without shouting out one more track. It's the incredibly hot, plucky playfulness of The Air is Getting Slippery. Don't miss it. We're into the top 5 now. The big boys. In 5th slot, I've placed their devious, defiant 1990 studio debut, Frizzle Fry. A pounding of poignant, anti-tradition, anti-war, anti-capitalist thrash funk grooves to properly introduce this enigmatic group to the world, questioning it all through their bold slamming takedowns. Les swells and smashes listeners with his destructive, fluttering bass licks from front to back. These fiery, riotous anthems like the bungly Pudding Time or the insubordinate opener to defy the laws of tradition, and you have the absolutely crushing instant classic Too Many Puppies. As much ground as it covers, it all manages to stay pretty memorable and wildly groovy. It's a formidable foray that I'm sure had plenty of people hungry for seconds. Frizzle Fry touches on many a familiar theme at this point, from general anti-establishmentarianism to fishing, and it proves that they've stuck to those unconventional guns for at least 25 years now. Topping off the supremely funktastic section, my fourth favorite Primus project was released in 1991, so fans didn't have to wait long for those delectable seconds. Their savory escape was the band's sophomore studio album, Sailing the Seas of Cheese. And I think I'm going to call an audible here and just bump it up a little bit so it sort of straddles the line between totally primo and supremely funktastic. An even more direct slam in the face of conformist American ideals than Frizzle Fry, Seas of Cheese is another much appreciated dose of metallic funk riff realism. Doubling down with confidence and swagger, the boys toss up a thumping middle finger to society and surpass and subvert expectations once more. You have the pulsating 11 with its unreal math rock groove that absolutely sends me to another dimension. You have the invisible enemy of Here Come the Bastards, and the funk nasty conformist banger Sergeant Baker, and then the definitive Primus singles, Jerry Was a Race Car Driver's blasting celebration of mediocrity, and then the Tom Waits featured Tommy the Cat that has this infectious groove that could go on as long as it wanted to. Not forgetting the manic blistering Is It Luck, or the rigorous rockin' reelin' fishin' tales of Fish On. As much as that damned wonky album has grown on me, this particular record seems to continue to age like a fine gorgonzola. Squeezing up onto the podium and into the totally primo Primus album category is their 2011 comeback record. The band's sixth is my third favorite. Their slippery, smooth, environmental plea. It's Primus's Green Naugahyde. I love getting amped up by taking a ride on Hennepin Crawler's driven spook funk. It perfectly charges me for Last Salmon Man's dutiful, raging righteousness and Eternal Combustion Engine's catchy as COVID maniacal layering, both those last two reinforcing each other's socio-environmental messaging so well. What a beginning. It all gets hammered home by the fatalistic, springy funk of Tragedies a-comin', whose hopeless feeling of watching a train wreck happen gets amplified by Eyes of the Squirrel's hypnotic dread and the way too fun for its content Jilly's On Smack. The upright electric bass on that track just ooh. More on TV throws more judgment towards the squirrel-eyed populace before briefly dropping into its jammy escapist center. Observational helplessness is numbered by Green Ranger before then being tossed to the wind with the psychedelic, tribal, groovy as ever song. It reminds me of something King Gizzard might do. It's called Extinction Burst. Outside of it being a touch too on the nose and maybe having a couple of just okay songs like the homage to the supporting cast Lee Van Cleef and the rage rocky Hohen for the Man, this record's post-ironic smoke 'em if you got 'em attitude helps tremendously to keep my hopeful nihilism right in line. These last two both feature the aforementioned Brain on drums, and so maybe that's a thread I ought to follow a little further and check out some of the other groups he's played for, but I digress. My second favorite of the two, at least for the time being, is the band's fifth record, released in 1997, with filthy dynamics and masterful tension play. It's the Brown Album. A momentous album, a quasi-fresh start, and simultaneously a return to the early, aggressive, gung-ho Primus days, and they knew it, hitting us right out the gate with one of the best intro tracks called The Return that fires up its audience with abrasive ebbs and flows. The record teaches a cautionary tale or two with the stubborn-to-death, thrashy throwback of fisticuffs and the dangers of too strictly enforcing one's principles on Golden Boy's sticky-as-ever riffs. You have the fantastic storytelling of the bluesy, metaphorical Over the Falls that's followed by the hefty, indignant crunch of Shake Hands with Beef's sneering march. There's this fun, repeated letter thing that Les employs in a bunch of his songs across the catalog, and in the case of Camelback Cinema, it might be the worst of them, and it's still hooky as hell. We then get the appreciation for life's many processors on the song Hats Off, and then another great one. It's not Pudding Time, it's Pudding Tane, and this is a character that I think we got introduced to on an earlier record. He gets more fleshed out with funfare on this stylish, moving piece. Then Bob's story gets a little more lore, a place to live fast and loose called Bob's Party Time Lounge, where you can partake and escape into an assortment of substances. Like on the following, maybe you did a little bit too much acid and you hit the wonky, trippy Duchess and the proverbial mind spread, or maybe you just want to share a smoke and a drink with a curious old man on a track called Rest in Bones. The rest of the record makes merry out of superficiality and labels, swinging here and there before hitting the end, the last track where a priest ritualistically sets himself on fire in front of his congregation. Remember this day. Either way, there's not much to complain about when it comes to the Brown Album. I can't say I'm crazy about Kalamazoo or Bob's Lounge, but overall, an amazing album. Fresh, freewheeling with excellent flow. Now, you might not agree, but that's what the comment section is for. My number one totally primo Primus album is the band's sixth, released in 1999. Their most approachable and apparently accessible through secondhand sources, as it's the only one I've found so far. My bias here lies with it being my introduction to the group and the record I've listened to the most of theirs. So that's how life goes sometimes. The best Primus album yet, according to One Man's Tracks, is Antipop, baby. Woo-hoo-hoo! This is my anytime Primus pick, with songs so deeply sunk into my psyche I can't get enough. With such a huge team of notable musicians, I can't list them here to save myself time, but I'll just put a little wiki list in case you're curious on just how stacked this project truly is. The final chapter of Primus's second phase is teeming with earworms, hookworms, and we'll even have you wrestling around for ringworms by the time it's done with you. A little over an hour of streamlined Primus, gripping from its enticing intro snippet all the way past its conclusion to the heckler. Antipop puts Primus's particular blend of heavy-duty stylistic defiance on full display. Each track a gripping wake-up call in its own delicious way. It's such a phenomenal expression of rock fusioneering to send off an amazing era of the genre. It comes together so brilliantly, and it helps to redefine an alternative for artistic boundaries, musical expression, and popular convention. Sure, it might not be as punchy, gritty, or challenging as some of the other amazing Primus projects I've talked about today, and sure, maybe as a new fan, the other records will eventually surpass my love for this one, or maybe they'll put out a new one with Hoffman and that'll be the new top, but either way, I think this record for a newcomer is the perfect thing to open up the potential of falling down that deep rabbit hole, the magnificent side of kind of the nastier, uglier side of pop and just rock in general. There you have it, my big old Primus ranking. Don't miss out on the EPs. Suck on This is a great start. I've got a whole ton of other stuff that I need to get into, apparently, looking into Les's extended discography, so I can't wait to check out Les Claypool Delirium, the Twang, the Fungi stuff, the Frog Brigade stuff, Oysterhead, among probably other stuff. So please, alongside your own personal rankings down in the comments, maybe even just your top 3, top 5, whatever's easiest for you. I'd love some recommendations on your favorites, other offshoots of theirs, so I can just keep filling my brain with their funky goodies. Either way, thank you so much for being here. Subscribe if these guys suck. Here's some more videos that also suck. Thanks so much for watching. Take good care of each other, god damn it.